Hey everybody, today I want to talk about a new direction on my channel. It's about consciousness, it's about the human being. Hi there, I remember your name. Um, yeah, and it's about the human being, it's about consciousness, how consciousness might have evolved, what it is, and about the human being that is the animal that creates worlds behind worlds. So, to bring these topics together, consciousness itself is a world behind a world. Because we could be what we are without this second layer of consciousness, which basically is the reason for the whole introverted world and nature of human beings. So we can be extroverted, which means that our six senses are all out in the world reacting, and our whole focus is externalized. This is when we are in flow, or we are just absorbed by the situation and have to react. So we don't need consciousness to do this. Consciousness only comes into action when we have time to breathe, time to self-reflect, time to do introspection and kind of talk. So Nietzsche stated, first of all, that consciousness has developed from the necessity to communicate. For whatever reasons, Nietzsche said, it's of course he connected it to his own philosophy of slave moral and master morality, where masters and slaves needed to communicate for different reasons. But whether this is true or not, I would expand it as well, by the way, to get to the next world behind the world, which is empathy. And when we expand the slave and master morality of Nietzsche, the way he saw it, or in other words, making this split that has always been in human history, that there is people who seem to be the masters and people who seem to be the slaves, but we later get to this again, hopefully, because the human is also a being that twists and inverts things over and over and over again. So that the definition of who is a master, who is a slave, who is a predator, who is the prey, and who is the villain, who is the victim, and so on, get inverted multiple times until nobody knows anymore what is the fact, what even is the truth. The same applies to morality. Morality should be a tool to find out what is good and what is bad, or what is good and what is evil. But it evidently does not work, because it gets inverted and used by the crafty monkey mind. Therefore, it does not have any real, it has no power to explain anything. All right, but yeah, we started out with the world behind the world, especially where consciousness comes from, and we made a bridge now to empathy. So let's go step by step. Let's go real slow. I think that consciousness is a way, is a second layer, right, to perceive what happens outside and inside, and kind of reflect on this, and be able to communicate it to others. Yet we have the problem of intelligence. We also have the problem of fantasy. And I can answer soon to this question in the chat. I want to finish this a little bit. Yeah. I say the problem of intelligence and the problem of fantasy, because this is where it starts, that the human being creates worlds behind worlds and inverts the status quo. So intelligence bears the possibility for evil, in my opinion. And a YouTube follower of me recently said that evil is just a human construction, but I believe there is more to it. I think it's kind of real, but whenever we define what is evil, evil will camouflage as that what we say is not evil. Okay, so however, now to the question. Hi everybody. Do I believe in God? I have stated recently that I believe God is an impersonal energy in a sense that relates to Bob Marley's, or can relate to Bob Marley's, the song where he sings, "Some people think great God will come from the sky, take away everything and make everybody feel high." So I don't believe that God is here on this earth, on this, and doing things for us. That is what I not believe. For me, it's rather like there is some scientists, like I would claim Albert Einstein was a scientist that was atheistic at the beginning. But by the way, I don't believe that atheism is... I think if you're an atheist, this is your religion, or if you are a person that is deeply rational, only rational, you're a person that rationalizes everything, is great at breaking down things to a common sense ground. I think if you do this, you repress a huge part of your nature, which will bring forth certain problems in your life. All right, so if you're too rationalized, or too focused on only the rational side, on the things you can count, the cognitive intelligence, and you don't, this means you close your eyes for the worlds behind worlds, because spirituality and religion is also a world behind a world. So I believe, to finish this thought, I like the way Albert Einstein came to his belief to God, because he found so much fascination and inexplicable things in his science that he said there must be something greater. So this is how I think it is. I feel wherever we go with our consciousness and explore things, it's so fascinating, more fascinating than any imagination about God could be. Therefore, there must be something bigger behind that. So, yes, I believe in something like God, but the nature of it and so on is mysterious. It's mysterious. Another topic on my channel will be the following. See, imagine we would be 100 people. Imagine we were 100 people, 1,000 people in the same place, out in nature, on a meadow, in a green grass area. There is one way going through the area, and there is a tree standing there. All people in the place will agree this is the green grass and the meadow, and this is the way, and this is the tree. This means we're living in the same world. Everybody is agreeing on the superficial level. 100% agreement. Otherwise, the person is completely insane, okay? It's possible. Maybe there's people who will see things that are not there, but this is something for other scientists, not for me. However, what I want to say is we share the same planet, the same world with other human beings, and each human being has this infinite internal world, but we are all agreeing on, we have a 100% consensus on the external world, but we project things into these objects, in trees, in the meadow, in the way, and in other people. And this is why the world behind this world, the world behind the tree, or in the tree, you could say, is 100% individual. It means something different. It has a different emotional color for every person, all right? Oh, whether I have looked for a religion that believes the same as me? Well, I could relate. When I was 20 years old, I went to Jamaica, and I can relate to parts of how the Rastas are. The Rastas, they don't want to be called Rastafarians. They don't like this ending, they want to be called Rastas, not Rastafarian, not Rastafarianism or something. They don't like this. They are rebellious in nature, and I could relate to a lot of them, but not to everybody. There's fanatics there as well. There's people who exclude others based on based on their individual choices or identities. And I don't, so there is no group, that can contain an individual 100%. You must stay detached. In my opinion, I stay detached of all groups. I never say I am 100% represented by this group, because the group always will show signs of corruption or fundamentalism, radical parts, or things that I simply don't support, right? Yeah, let me get another coffee. Yeah, so this is what I want to explore in the future on my channel, that we are human beings that create worlds behind worlds, yet we have this 100% consensus on the external world. Everybody will agree that, this is a key. But still we have a completely different perception of the world, because we project our own complexes, our own experiences, our own trauma, and all these things into what we experience. Speaking about trauma, another thing that I want to make a topic of my channel is that we live in a psychologized world. Our grandmothers, grandfathers, they had no psychotherapist. They did not know about psychotherapeutic language. They also had no gym, right? So all the self-improvement that we have today um, is a focus to the inside. It means we look at ourselves, we try to improve ourselves, we see trends, so everybody goes to therapy and everybody is doing this self-improvement and everybody is so in this positivity. You can arguably say this is toxic positivity in some way. Um, and I also claim that since the introduction of the term mental health has only deteriorated, it got worse. Yet I do not say that psychology is not good. I think it is actually the only remedy that we have at the moment, especially when it comes um, to dealing with morality. Let me give you an example. Or before we get there, I started with claiming that our grandmothers and grandfathers did not have a gym and they did not have a psychotherapist because they had a life. In other words, maybe they did not have a dishwasher, they did not have a washing machine, they did not have artificial intelligence to work for them, they did not have a car, maybe, and they did not have a lot of free time because they were working, they were creating the food, they were planting the seed for the food that they will then harvest and process in the kitchen and cook and educate the children themselves and washing the clothes and the house, doing all the work, just functioning, just surviving. So they did not have to go to gym. They might have had to walk 10 miles a day and work physically hard, so they don't need a gym. And they also don't need a psychotherapist because they they don't have time to think about themselves. They don't think about, okay, they just might have a problem, might feel a little bit sad, but they don't say, oh, now I'm depressed. You know, they just move on. Next day it's going on. Fuck this. Just go on. Right? All right. But I think psychology also is very helpful. People were not as sensitive as they are now. Somebody's writing, yes, might be true, but I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about this. I think sensitivity was not pushed so much into the foreground. I mean, the proto-psychologists like Fyodor Dostoevsky or Friedrich Nietzsche and others were deep, very sensitive. I think we were, at that time, we had more geniuses that could, we had more difference. Today we are all kind of made the same, and we are very specialized in one very small area where we get our money, and for this money we consume everything else. Back in the days, I think there was a broader scope on abilities on everybody, but we also had a few real geniuses. Today we don't have geniuses. Today we have super specialized people in some areas, but geniuses are cut out and suppressed. But let's think about this. Were people more sensitive? I think we are living in a hypersensitive and inflamed society. We are inflamed and hypersensitive. Yes, but because we have the time to be this, and we have lost the life where we can fight the battles, fear the fears. Okay, so when we go back 70,000 years, we know that we are afraid of saber-toothed tigers or cave bears, and when we meet one, we can fight it or run away. So we have the fight and flight response in full swing. And at the end of the day, there is no reason to have any forms of high sensitivity or paranoia, because we are in the world that we are adapted to, and every part of our sensory organs, our fears, our psychological abilities finds a representation in the world where it is used. So this is not the case anymore today. Today there is no dangers, or the fight and flight situations are highly abstract. In the bureau where you work, your boss is the saber-toothed tiger. And or in some ways you get into fight and flight situations, but you can't fight. You're not allowed to fight because there's police, there is laws, there is moral, and you can also not run away. So you're ending up with a sensation, but you can't put it into physical reality. So this is why we are inflamed. And then we have the time to think about it, and this gives them even more resonance to it, right? Yes. Also, somebody writes, nowadays everything has a name. Before it didn't. That's exactly what I'm saying. Um, Giving things a name can be helpful. Especially, my channel comes from the background of narcissistic abuse. This is why I even started it. And to single out these very camouflaged, hidden patterns and being able to name them is very helpful. It's like a contrast agent that you use to make something visible in an X-ray picture. But it also gives the problem kind of existence. Before you name it, it did not really exist to some extent, right? So it's like many things, a double-edged sword. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, we're living in a society that is psychologized. By the way, I also think that we're living in a society where victimhood movements are being made possible. Okay, there was times where victimhood movements did not exist, and victimhood movements come, in my opinion, from a good idea to support and help real victims. But just like morality, they are undermined and infiltrated by the most crafty people, by those people who are smart and clever and intelligent. I said in the beginning, we have the problem of intelligence and we have the problem of fantasy. And the most crafty people, the people with pure intelligence that is detached from a natural way of being moral, out of, I would claim healthy people have a connection between heart and soul and their personality core, the way they conduct their behavior, the way they are. They are effortlessly morally aligned without having learned moral rules that they have to align with their desires. They are naturally good people, so to speak. But these are not the most crafty. The most crafty are the people who are not moral by nature. They are detached from heart and soul in some way. And they will undermine and use moral the most effective. They are the best at moralizing. Bad people are the best at moralizing, as well as these people are the best to take advantage of victimhood movements and undermine them and use them and overtake them for their selfish goals. That's just my opinion. All right, another question from the chat. The thing is, everything has a name, but does everything have a solution? Or does everything has a solution? Well, I think solutions are highly individual. I think comparison and competition makes absolutely no sense in individuation and personal development. This is also a big misunderstanding or problem, that when people become competitive or comparing their mental health, it's a kind of, or their level of enlightenment, this is a contradiction in itself, right? Yeah. So, to get back to my new inspiration about the human being creating worlds behind worlds, let's break it down in one example that I was thinking about today. Again, the background of the channel, narcissistic abuse. Let's say we have human beings always start out in a naive way. Parents believe, or parents are in a less naive state than their children are. Children are in a naive way, grandiosely exploring the world. Similarly, to refer to the Bible, in Garden Eden, Adam and Eve lived like children in a garden. They did not live out in the wilderness. They lived in the garden in a parental relationship with God. All right? And this is the nature of parenting as well. Yet children might become rebellious because parents might want to push their children into understanding the reality of the world from the point of view of the parents. So the parent projects something into the same objects that the kids see and agree on it. So it's a tree. Child says tree. Father and mother says it's a tree. But what it means, the parents have more experience and try to force the child to accept this, but the child might be rebellious and say, no, I want to explore the tree myself. And this is a very valuable rebellion in the child, and you should not, as a parent, try to take away the experience of the child, because we're living in a three-dimensional world. Even in a four-dimensional world, if you take time into account, this means the world also changes. And you need to let your child develop its own world behind worlds, so to speak. But now back to narcissistic abuse. When you live in your own naive state as a grown-up person, before awakening, if we want to say it this way, right? You're just functioning, you're just doing your thing, you're living in a form of naive state. Then comes the narcissist and the psychopath, so that for everybody is something there, okay? So the psychopath is a goal-oriented, detached energy. It's not a tattooed inmate of a jail that is highly aggressive, and no. A psychopath is a highly functional person with an almost hypernatural stability because they are not emotional. The psychopath represses anxiety and everything. They are detached, therefore they are only goal-oriented. For the psychopath, relation to other person is, you are an instrument for my goal, or you're an obstacle on the way to my goal. Therefore I have to interact with you. The psychopath has to interact with you if you're an instrument or an obstacle. Otherwise, you're not there. They are highly functional, have a superficial charm, are opportunistic, they overdo things in social um, in social interactions, try to dominate in some way, but they can't tune in exactly the frequency in an effortless way. They are in some way better better imitations of a real person than a real person itself, because they have to be so convincing. All right. So a narcissist is very different from a psychopath. All right. A narcissist is a person that is caught up in a fantasy, in a grandiose fantasy that is not rooted in reality. I don't go deep into this, but narcissists are, in my opinion, harder to deal with than psychopaths, because with a psychopath you can just reflect back when you once you suffered enough because you found out this person that pretends to want the best for you and pretends to be your friend is just bad for you, basically, or in a long term. You can just reflect it back and say, okay, now I'm detached and cold and goal oriented and have my boundaries, and that's it. With a narcissist, it's different. It's like, I don't go into this on this topic, but we want to talk about worlds behind worlds, and before awakening, before your awareness for all these things, you were in a naive state, just living your life, right? Now the narcissist and the psychopath come in your life. You are the person that is a functional part of society and life. So we could say you're the predator that brings home prey. You bring supply. You bring you bring positive emotions. You bring money home. You bring connection to society. You bring connection to social life. You are the gate and the embodiment of all of this. Now they want a part of that. So they infiltrate your life. And they can do this via triangulation. So the narcissist can use the shared fantasy and the introject of you to manipulate you, and the psychopath could potentially play good cop, which means they pretend to be interested in making peace between between this new emerging problem, but in reality they are in control. The psychopath is always controlling everything. The narration, where it goes, it's all, the psychopath brings everything in alignment with his goals. So let's get to the world behind the world. When we look to this structure, to this social structure, we have a healthy working part of society is being infiltrated by narcissists and psychopaths. We could say the healthy person is the predator that brings home the supply that is needed in a social environment, right? But now the dynamic shifts, because now the narcissist and the psychopath are in some way predatory. They are scavenging in some way because they are dependent of the healthy person that enables them to get supply. But at the same time, they victimize this person by doing evil, which means they covertly, secretly, not in any way visible or tangible, create a very subtle structure that undermines the fabric of truth and reality itself. They create a world behind the world, and they invert the nature, the narration of this. All right, so first we have the predator bringing home prey and sharing it with everybody. Then this person gets victimized, all right, by narcissist and psychopath. So the hunter becomes hunted. But then again, narcissism and psychopathy are ultimately self-destructive strategies. So the psychopath suffers his or her own success because they only accumulate people around them that suffer from them, because the psychopath is detached. The psychopath represses emotional attachment to anything or anyone. Therefore, they are high functioning. But this means all the suffering that they cause by pursuing a selfish goal, intentionally or not intentionally, is only suffered by people around them. So they suffer by proxy. And they suffer from their own success in this. The psychopath always wins. They win their goal. They get their goal no matter what. But they suffer from it because they're chasing shadows. All right. All right. And narcissism is also self-destructive, because the narcissist constantly tries to compete with healthy people, which brings them in the position of being in their... The narcissist is caught in the fantasy. They can't get out of it. That's just what it is. And this means they are constantly controlled by their own repressed shadow. The narcissist is repressing shame, can't feel shame, therefore don't know what is right or wrong, good or evil. They can absolutely not discern what is good and evil because they have no shame. Shame is there to tell you you did something wrong. This was very disturbing for me when I witnessed narcissists doing evil, hurting people, maybe in a sadistic way, maybe not, and then being proud of it. All right, and this shows they repress shame. They don't know what they do. Lord forgive them, for they don't know what they do. And this means they are constantly controlled by their shadow because they want to compete with healthy people, which is impossible. It's all is delusional in narcissism. It's very complicated. It's much more complicated than a psychopath, from my understanding. All right, but it's self-defeating. It can only lead nowhere, right? So, but this creates worlds behind worlds. First, we have the healthy, naive person, being the predator, bringing home that what everybody wants. Then predators come, make the hunter the hunted, inverting the narration, the reality, the truth. And now again, because it's self-defeating, the narcissist and the psychopath become the hunted of what they have done. Again, it changes. It's dynamic. And this is the same with morality. Morality be twisted over and over again. So the narcissist and the psychopath will be the best to generalize what they did, to rationalize what they did, and to moralize what they did. They will end up as the victim if necessary. So this is why I say we create worlds behind worlds, and we need to overcome many things. We have to overcome morality, because it does not make sense to give too much focus and importance to morality if it is being undermined and hijacked in this way. And we have to understand, we have to understand this in a psychological way. I think psychology has many dangers, as we were discussing here in the first place of the stream, but it also is the remedy for this, because we can understand what is happening based on psychological observation and interpretation, right? So I hope I could give you guys an idea of where we might go in the future on this channel. And especially what I think is interesting is to see this, to get an answer finally about why we are living in the same world, but at the same time the world is so different. It's because we agree on the objects, but what we project in the objects is so individually different. This is an interesting topic. I hope we get a lot of insight about this. And also we understand how the human being creates worlds behind worlds, until we don't even know anymore what is now really the truth. But I see ways to solve this, or to move forward from there. There is many interesting topics to go to. How empathy might have evolved from the relationship also of predator and prey. How consciousness might have evolved. And yes, it's a big field, and I hope to see you soon in the following videos. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for watching. I wish everybody a beautiful Sunday. And thank you to giving me the opportunity to speak my mind. Thank you too. Bye bye.